What's up, everybody? This is Jay, and this is the Walking Dead Season 4 Recap Review. I want to thank everybody that support my work at Patreon.com. My biggest fans: Joyce M, D Thorne, Anthony M, Yolanda R, Angel B, Eddie S, Cynthia H, Felena W, Special K, and Valerie L. If you haven't subscribed, please do, and click the like button if you like the video. Now, The Walking Dead Season 4, it's just action-packed. It starts off, there's just so much going on. I tried to make it as short as I can, so let's get into it. It starts off a few months after the governor. Rick is now got a farm going. He's trying to grow crops. Him and Carl, they got a little lady Piggy right there. They trying to do things. You know, Bob Evans, Herschel, and taught him how to plant crops. He's trying to turn over a new leaf. We see that Daryl is looked up as one of the leaders of the crew now. They got the kids and stuff wanting to shake his hand. They got a new system in place with the new recruits. They cleaning the fences. They got a new routine. We see that Maggie and Glenn's love is growing, but he's worried he might have leaked a little baby batter up in her. But anyway, we see Tyrese. He trying to do a little bump and grind and get close with this one girl, Karen. We see Beth. She got a new boyfriend. She got a little new boo that she kissing on. We got a new guy named Bob. He's from the Water Boy. He was Bobby Boucher's best friend. He trying to put the moves on Sasha Fierce, little sexy self. She ain't really trying to have it though. And so everything's coming along together. Michonne is now going bareback looking for the governor, and she also is bonded with Carl. She's bringing him comics and things, and it seems that they're getting along pretty good, as well as her and Rick are starting to bond and have a good relationship. And so the kids from Woodbury are kind of sheltered and kind of off, and they're playing with the zombies and naming them. And then that's when Carl comes and said, look, they don't play with them, you don't name them, they're dead. She like, well, they're not dead, they're just different. That's what Lily, the taller one, said. And he like, they're not different, they're dead, they eat people, leave them alone. And so they kind of don't get it. Meanwhile, on the supply run, we see Bob, Daryl, Sasha, and the rest of them all out there trying to get supplies. One of the guys from Woodbury is looking up to Daryl as a leader, and he's trying to guess what kind of job Daryl held or whatever before the fall, and he think he was a detective or something. Meanwhile, they don't realize it's a bunch of walkers on the roof from a plane crash, and so they're going inside looking for supplies. Bob looking to get a little drink on or whatever to ease the mood, and maybe wine and dine Sasha. And little did he know, he knocks over the whole shelf and makes a big ruckus, makes all this kind of noise, and he's trapped under the shelf. And so while they're trying to get him from trapped under the shelf, the walkers on the roof hear the noise. They start walking around because the helicopter crash, it compromised the roof in the rain, and so now they start falling through the roof. And so they dropping in unexpected in the party. Everybody is all getting worried or whatever. Bob, he's worried because he's still trapped. They had to go and leave to fend off the walkers. Daryl, he's surrounded. He's trying to fight his way through, and then the helicopter's about to fall on them. So they're just getting surrounded all angles right now. Bob is about to be ate up. We see Beth's boyfriend gets bit in the leg, and next thing you know, he's a human Happy Meal for one of these walkers. And so everybody gets free, Bob gets free, and they all break out before they get bum rushed. And so they all out of there. We see back at the prison, Carol's doing story time with the kids, but just like true prison fashion, she brings out the story time and teaches them how to use a shank. And so she's trying to show everybody, the kids, how to protect themselves. When the one nerd boy, Patrick, said he's feeling sick, he didn't want to yak on everybody, so he leaves. Meanwhile, Daryl gets back, and he's going to tell Beth that her boyfriend is gone. And when she did it, she took it like a champ. She didn't even shed a tear. She like, hey, we don't get to cry no more. Little did they know that Patrick, instead of telling people how sick he was, he thought he just needed a cold shower. And so he went into the prison shower. He tried to take a cold shower. He ends up passing out, bleeding to death, like he had the Ebola virus. We find out that it's somebody dancing with the devil by the pale moonlight, because they're taking these mice and rats and they're playing with them and feeding them to the walkers and letting the walkers lick on them and stuff. And so somebody's trying to sabotage the crew inside the prison. We see Patrick wakes up. He's now walking dead. He's looking for a little snack to eat, and he finds a little combo meal from this one fat boy that was laying there, and he digging them guts and ate him up. And now there's a couple walkers walking around in CB4. And so Carl and Rick had no idea what's going on. They're farming until Lizzie, the girl, runs out screaming that they need help. And so Rick jumps into action. He runs in there to see what's going on. He grabs his crew. We see one of the other people getting ate, Dom DeLuise. And so he's getting ate up. A bunch of people got bit. And so Rick, Daryl, and Glenn, they end up clearing everything out. They find that Patrick was sick, bleeding and everything, and they like, man, how did he die in one day from this sickness? And so they're trying to figure out everything that happened, and they see it's a big mess in that cell block. Dom DeLuise, he's sitting there about to die. He asked Carol to look after his girls. He saw that she cared for him, so she promises that she'll be there for his girls. And so while they're sitting there making those little goodbye wishes, they're trying to figure out, how did this happen? What made them sick? They found another person that bled out and wasn't bit or anything. And so that's when the doctor that's there from Woodbury that's with him said, hey, this is what had killed them, some type of sickness. We need to get meds. We see Lizzie and Mika, the two little girls, and they come to say goodbye to their daddy, Dom DeLuise. And after they do, Carol sticks a knife into his ear and cleans it out. Meanwhile, we see at the small council, they're trying to come up with a solution, and they decide, let's quarantine everybody to make sure that it doesn't spread. Karen, Tyrese's little booty he'd been working on, she's sick, so he helps her to go back to be quarantined, and Carol has everybody else that was sick be quarantined as well. Outside, we see the two girls and they all sad, and Lizzie, the oldest one, is kind of crying, and then Carol says it's okay, and she like, they killed him, they didn't have to. And she like, I know, it's sad. And she said, no, I'm talking about Nick. They killed him. He was special and they didn't have to kill him. And she like, what? Nick? And she like, she's messed up, ma'am. She doesn't get it. And so meanwhile, the gate is being compromised by so many walkers pushing up against it. They're trying to prop it up. And while they do, they realize, hey, somebody's been feeding these things. Look at all these dead mice and rats here and stuff. And so now they're trying to figure that out, but they can't really address it because the gate is about to fall. And so meanwhile, back inside, Michonne had got injured during all the ruckus. And so Beth is taking care of little ass kicker, and then she spit up on her, so she asked Michonne to hold her. Michonne was reluctant at first, but then she did. And while she was holding her, she began to cry. And so we realized something is missing with Michonne with that baby. Meanwhile, to get elder walkers off the gate, Rick comes up with a plan to feed him a little bacon. And so he cuts a little bit of piece of bacon off the side of one of the pigs, and he lets him run off into the field, and all the walkers go chasing after him because they wanted to get some of that bacon too. And so that was looking like hot sauce on the pork rind to them. And so he ends up getting the gate free. He kills some of the walkers. He burns the rest of the pig pen because they didn't know if it was swine flu. Meanwhile, Tyrese going to see his little boo thing, maybe get a little jerk before work, and then he goes and sees that somebody has done smoked this girl like a pack of Newports. And so now he's furious. He's asking Rick to find out what happened. You're supposed to be a cop. I want you to figure out what happened. Is murder okay in this place now? And so he like, nah, murder not okay. And so then Daryl trying to talk to him, and then he takes take his anger out on Daryl, and he got Daryl up against the wall, but Daryl understand about anger and frustration, so he tell Rick to stay back. I got this, it's cool. And so he stayed back, and Rick tried to calm him down, and he hauls off and cracks Rick in the face and beats him a couple times. And so Daryl pulls him off of Rick, and then Rick snaps. He just goes off and beats the hell out of him and just beats him down, bloody, punches him in the eye. He beat dude in the eye. His face was looking like separated dog nuts. And so then Daryl was able to finally pull Rick off, because Rick snapped. He was about to lose it and basically kill him with his bare hands. And so then Rick comes to and realizes that he done lost it a little bit. And meanwhile, Tyrese is all balled up in the fetal position. He done got hurt so bad. And so meanwhile, we see Sasha come out, and now she's sick. And so now everybody's worried because the sickness is spreading. And so they try to have another small council meeting. And Glenn is trying to be strong, but he can't be too strong because he's starting to realize, oh man, I'm sick too. And so now everybody's scared in jeopardy. Rick feels bad about how he beats Tyrese so bad, and so he went to apologize, and we see Tyrese didn't know how to fight, but he did know how to throw a mean face, because that's all that he was able to do, because that eye boy was looking horrible. And so while Rick is investigating the crime like a cop, he's checking out all the evidence. He's looking at the drag patterns. He sees blood on the door. He measures it up and sees that that was actually somebody's hand right there that pushed that there, and it was kind of smaller than a man's hand. Meanwhile, Daryl and the crew went on the run to get the meds for everybody that was sick, and while they were listening to the radio, they heard somebody broadcasting something. And so they was trying to listen to see and make out what it was, and they didn't realize, because they wasn't paying attention to the road, that it was a big swarm of walkers on the way. And so they ended up crashing into a few. And so Daryl, he got shook like a bowl of jello, so he tried to throw it in reverse and peel out like the Italian job. But there was so many walkers that they had got lifted up in the car, and they was just peeling rubber, burning their heads off. And so they had to make a getaway, and so he told everybody to bail out while he tried to give them cover. And so while everybody bailed out for cover, Tyrese just sitting there looking stupid, stuck on stupid. And so Bob is like, yo, come on, let's go. And so he finally gets out the car, and now he want to kill all the zombies single-handedly with his little hammer, MC Hammer. It's hammer time. And so they all break out and leave because they see he got a death wish like Charles Bronson. Little did they know he made it through. He come out tired and wore out. They rescue him, and then they all make it out of there. Meanwhile, back at the pen, we see Herschel trying to help, and the doctor's talking to him, and he realized, man, this is bad. And so Rick confronts Carol, and he say, man, you do a lot for us. Is it anything you wouldn't do for us? And she say, no. He said, did you kill Karen and David? And she was like, yes. And then walked off like it was nothing. So now Rick has got a lot to think about, and he's like, damn, Carol, he care about Carol, but now you can't have her murdering people. He don't want Tyrese to kill her. He thinks about what she did. She stabbed a knife in the back of their brain, carried them, dragged them out, and burned their bodies. And she was thinking that she was preventing the sickness. So Rick needed to go and make a run for supplies too, so he had Carol go with him. And so while he was there, he saw somebody else had a vehicle there, parting our dust or whatever the case. Meanwhile, we see Daryl and Michonne and the crew looking for supplies. They come across a gas station that was actually hell. The letters flipped upside down to spell hell. That was kind of crazy. They find a little minivan. They try to hotwire it, but they need a battery. So they trying to get inside this little auto store to get the battery, and Tyrese acting a damn fool, and he trying to cut through everything and won't let go. And Walker's on him, and they like, why didn't you let go? I don't know why. And so meanwhile, we see Rick, and he's inside this house looking for supplies with Carol, when all of a sudden they hear a little noise up top after they kill this Walker. And it turns out that it's this young couple in there, this one girl with a messed up leg and this little weirdo boy, and they trying to offer them fruit or whatever. So they end up talking to him, and they talk about how they met or whatever, and how she couldn't do much because her leg was messed up. And so they like, do you got a camp? Can we come with you? And so they basically say, hey, look for supplies. Here's my watch. Meet back in 2 hours. And so they break their separate ways. Meanwhile, Daryl and everybody is inside the veterinary clinic they were going to looking for supplies. Bob sees a little place right here. Somebody had a pallet of stuff, and he spots a fifth of E&J. So he want to get a little irk and jerk, little Earl juice. Meanwhile, we see Rick and Carol, and now they're looking for the people they were supposed to meet up with. And then they see old girl's leg laying there like a little barbecue broke leg, and then they see that she getting ate out, and not in a good way. And so they realize it's time to move on. Meanwhile, Bob and everybody finds all the meds that they need so that they can help save people back at the place, at the jail. And so they're trying to escape, but then they bump into a whole bunch of walkers inside of there. And so now they're trying to figure out a way to get out of there. They lost their exit, so they break a window. They jump out the window, and while they jump out the window on the roof, Bob, of course, has to fall. And when he falls, they like, come on, Bob, just let go of the bag, man. Let go of the bag. And he wouldn't let go. So when they finally get him free and get the bag, Daryl goes inside his bag, and he see that all he had in there was a fifth of Earl juice. He didn't have no meds, nothing. And he like, man, you about to risk your life and our life for this? Oh, to bust this. And he was about to throw it against the wall, and Bob was about to grab his gun. Hashtag get the strap. And so Daryl gets in his face like, dude, what? I know you ain't. And he basically punked him, and Bob had his head down, and he was scared. And Tyrese like, come on, the man made his choice, okay? Let's go. And so meanwhile, Rick and everybody and Carol, they getting their supplies together, and then Rick like, look, I can't have you go back with us. She like, what? This is me. He like, what you did, you killed those people, and I don't want Tyrese to do nothing to you. And so Carol's sad. He like, you strong now, you'll survive. And he helped her get all the supplies she need, loaded up that other vehicle, and Carol was on her way. She left, and that was it. And so Rick and Carol were both sad, but he figured that was best for them. Meanwhile, Herschel is, things are getting worse at the pen, and so he's trying to save lives. These people are choking on their own blood right now, and so he's trying to put through something so that he can help them breathe. He made a tea, and Sasha Fierce and Glenn are drinking the tea, trying to feel better. He trying to give some tea to the doc, but Doc like, man, it's over for me. You need to try to help the people that can be helped. And when it all goes bad, I got this right here for you to make sure everything is straight. And so he like, we won't need that. But he didn't realize people were already dying in the cell and starting to turn. And so Herschel's down on the first floor, and he's talking to one of the guys, asking him how's his son, and he's doing good, he's just resting. And next thing you know, he came and bit a piece out of his neck, and so he ate his arm and leg and neck, and so he's getting ate up. And so Herschel tries to get away. He falls off on his little leg, and so then we see old boy with the bag. He's trying to eat the little girl, and so she's bringing him away, and she trips on them boots, because them boots wasn't made for walking, their feet too big, and she falls, and old boy gets on top of her about to eat her and suck her like a 40-ounce of OE. But then we see Herschel get up there and help pull old boy up off of her. He goes to get the guns from the doc, but the doc turns, so he had to kill the doc real quick and get the shotties. And then next thing you know, Maggie broke in there to help, and she see Glenn is barely alive. They get the stuff cleaned off and help Glenn breathe. Meanwhile, Rick doesn't know what's going on. He trying to keep the gate from buckling, and him and Carl, and then it breaks anyway, so they got to make a break for it. They go to get the weapons, and while they getting the weapons, they gotta the zombies break through again, and so now they broke inside the fence all the way, and so him and Carl pretty much lay them all out and kill all of them. And so the next morning, we got Michonne, she trying to get all the bodies together and out of the prison, and they didn't know that the governor was in the forest watching this whole thing. And so then it flips to what happened to the governor. And so we see after the night he killed all his people, he was kind of in the zone in the days. Martinez and them was looking down on him like this dude has lost it. And so after he had went to sleep that night, he woke up and Martinez and everybody was gone and he was there by himself. So he just got in his truck and just crashed into Woodbury's gates, tore it all down and burned the whole town down. Like just went crazy and burned everything down. He could have restarted it, but instead he burned it down, let walkers in, and then he just hit the road. He just got to stepping. And he was on the road so long, he had his beard grew out. He was looking like a hot mess, like stir-fried shit. And he came across this one barn and they was saying the name, Don't Go Home, Brian Harriet. And so while he was walking, he had fell, and then he looked up and saw this girl in the window. He ended up getting up, going inside to see if he was dreaming or not. And it come to find out it was a little family in there, these two sisters, and and then her father was there along with their daughter. And so they all was sitting there and they was all wondering what was he going through, what happened with him. And he told them his name was Brian, and that he did have a town, but that it didn't work out, that the guy that ran it lost his mind or whatever, which was really him. And so they all are sitting there and he's looking at the next apartment at his picture of his family, and then he pretty much burns it up and decides, I'm going to have them as my new family. And so the little girl, Megan, is playing chess with him when all of a sudden they let him know that their dad had died. And so when they came to see the dad, then he realized that the dad was about to turn. They still sitting there next to him. He tried to eat one of them, so he had to kill him with an oxygen tank. And so while they decide they're going to stick together with him. And so while he's driving with them in this little truck, the girl, Megan, that's the little girl, and Lily and Tara, they all together. And while they sleep, Lily tried to lay next to him and give him a little snappy nappy dugout, and she wanted to get a little sweet Peter Jeter from him. And so they start making out and everything was going pretty good. They've got a little relationship going. And so now the van broke down, they on foot walking and everything, and next thing you know, they come across a herd of zombies, and so they got to break out and run. He picks up the little girl Megan and starts running. He gonna protect her because he wasn't able to protect his own daughter. And so he breaks out running through the forest, and then next thing you know, he falls into a pit full of zombies. And so he tries to take out the walkers barehandedly, if that's what it takes to protect this little girl. And next thing you know, Martinez walks up and he's surprised to see him. He like, wow, it's you. And so he gives him a rope and helps him get up out of there. And so once he climbs out of there, he like, man, I wouldn't have saved you if you was by yourself, but you got these girls with you. And what's going on with you? You all right? And they was like, Brian, you okay? He like, Brian. And so they all talking or whatever at the camp that he got, and he like, yeah, I run this camp and there's new rules, you follow what I say. And then he tell him, hey, come here, I got a surprise for you. And so he goes there and he got a little golf driving range, and so he's hitting the balls or whatever, and he telling him, hey man, I'm glad to see you made it back. It's good that family brought you back. Maybe now you can help me run this place. And so then while he had his back turned, he cracked him upside the head with the golf club. He like, man, what you doing? What's up? And so he like, no, I don't wanna. And he grabbed him and dragged him and threw him into the zombie pit and fed him to the zombies. And so he went to go talk to the next dude that was about to be second in command, the next in charge. And he talked to him and stabbed him in the back literally and killed him and told everybody he died a hero. Then he went to the dude's brother and held him at gunpoint and said, hey, look, I know a place where we can go to be safe. They wasn't going to keep us safe. You either with me or against me. And so he joins them, and then he goes and tells everybody, the people that burned down my last camp, they're bad people. They got a place that we can go and we can take. I got it where we can do it with no violence. I already captured a couple of their people. They like, you captured them, and we see he captured Herschel and Michonne when they was disposing of the bodies. And so we see Tara like, well, I'm in. and she the first one that was in on his plan. And so he's talking to Herschel and Michonne, and they like, man, you can stay with us, we can make it work. He like, it will never work. Meanwhile, we see back at the pen, Glenn is feeling better now, and everybody that was sick is starting to feel better after they've gotten a little bit of them meds up in them. And while Daryl and Rick were going to tell Tyrese about Carol, he wanted to show them that, hey, I found this rat opened up, dissected. Whoever's doing this killed Carol. And before they can killed his girl, and before they could tell him it was Carol, they hear a big boom. They go outside. It's the governor and his crew and a tank, and they shot the damn jail with the tank. And so they got Michonne and Herschel on their knees captured. And so Rick goes over there to talk to him. The governor tell him to come. Rick like, we got a council. He didn't want to go, but Rick didn't have a choice. And so Rick came over there to talk to the governor, and he's like, man, we don't have to do this. We can all get along. We can all live here. It won't be easy, but we can do it. Meanwhile, the governor left Megan and Lily at the camp, and so she playing in the mud. Next thing you know, a zombie come out the mud trying to grab her booty like R. Kelly, and so she starts screaming or whatever, trying to get away, but her mama was too far away to help her. And next thing you know, the zombie started sucking on her neck like Interview with a Vampire. And so now, while they still back at the pen talking, Rick is trying to convince the governor and everybody that we don't have to fight. We don't have to do this. We can all have room enough for everybody to live. And the governor like, we can't do that. And so everybody is prepared for war now. Daryl and everybody is all armed up. The governor gets pissed. He jumps down and puts the sword to his throat and said, man, you need to let us in, and you need to leave by the end of the night. And so Tara's all scared, and Rick like, man, if you do that, more walkers will come. It won't be good for you here or us. We can both get along. And Herschel was proud that Rick is trying to, negotiate peacefully. And the governor thinking about it for a second, and then he was like, liar. And then he just pretty much took his sword and just chopped Herschel's neck and gave him some neck respect real quick. And Herschel just started to bleed off his head, barely hanging on. And Rick just loses it, starts screaming, unloads with the 3.57, starts blasting. Everybody starts shooting, and it's all out war right now. And we see Beth and Maggie, they lose it. Everybody's mad because Herschel was a good man and he didn't deserve to be decapitated like that in cold blood. And so Daryl, Carl, everybody, they just start unloading. Everybody just goes off, and the governor loses it. He just continues to chop his head clean, completely off. And while he was doing that, Lily saw that, and she looking at him like, this dude is nuts. And then she's bringing her daughter to him, and he's like, he just takes the girl. He doesn't say a word, and he looks at her, pulls out his gun, and just shoots her right in the head, right there, then and there. And so he moves on. We see Tara. She's all shook. She ain't shooting. They like, you just stay here and wait. She like, he just chopped his head off. She like, we have to take this place. That's her new girlfriend. And so she like, just stay behind me. And so the tank barrels through the gates, destroys the gates, and then they just rush inside the penitentiary. Everybody's shooting. It's just all chaos and everything. And during all of that, they just blasted more holes into the prison. It's just making a big mess of everything. And so everybody, the governor's people from Woodbury is escaping. He trying to kill his own people. And so while he's doing that, he must have forgot about Rick was hiding behind that bus. And Rick come out and just starts beating him down, punching him in the face. But the governor's pretty tough, and he reverses and flips the script, and Rick got shot in the leg, so he was already compromised, and his hand was busted from Tyrese. And so everybody's shooting, and they try to evacuate and get into the school bus. And so everybody's running to the bus. Maggie helps Glenn get in the bus. Glenn wants to help fight, but he's still very weak. And so Maggie tells him to wait there. Daryl's fighting, but a walker is coming right behind him, about to eat him. But he ends up using the walker as a shield and hides behind the walker while they're shooting at him. We see Bob get shot, and it's just all kind of chaos. And in the chaos, the bus leaves people behind. We see Tara's girlfriend. She's just trying to mow people down. She almost killed Tyrese. Then she comes across the girls and Lily, and they all start shooting at him, and they shot her right in the head, and aired her out like dirty laundry. And so Tyrese sees that. He goes and grabs Mika and the girls and runs, and the governor's choking the life out of Rick right there in front of everybody, and Rick is about to die, but Michonne comes and saves him with the sword right through his chest, and then she doesn't even finish him off. She just leaves him there to wiggle around in pain so that he can turn into a walker. Then she grabs Rick and helps him up, and Rick is like almost dead his damn self. And so Rick is leaving, and while the tank is shooting, Daryl is able to throw a grenade down the barrel, blow up the tank. Rick finds Carl. They looking for a little ass kicker, Judith, the baby, and then they find the car seat covered in blood with the baby missing, and they both lose it because they assume the worst, that a walker has ate their little baby, had baby back ribs. We see Lily. She comes up to the governor while he's laying there half dead and just shoots him in the head and kills him. And then meanwhile, the prison is just a loss now. It's all destroyed. Walkers everywhere. Rick and Carl escape in the woods. Walkers are invading inside the prison. I mean, it's just chaos. And the chaos, Michonne, she gets her 2 new slaves to carry her weapons. She sees Herschel then turn into a walker, his head. She kills him and puts him out of his misery. Meanwhile, Carl is pissed at Rick, and he's not even walking with him. He's walking fast. Rick can't even keep up. He like, slow down. And Carl's just so mad right now. They find a little house to hide out and crash for a while. Meanwhile, Michonne walking through the woods. She sees the trail that Rick or somebody had walked, but she decides not to go with it and goes a separate way. I guess she doesn't want to be hurt no more. And then we see a flashback of when she was sexy and looking good, and she's talking to her boyfriend and his friend about some movie or whatever. And then next thing you know, she's got the ninja sword, and then they talking about that or whatever, and then next thing you know, she's talking and she's got her son in her arms, and they're talking about a camp or whatever. And so she's talking about the camp or whatever, and then next thing you know, it goes even darker, and then she sees them with no arms or whatever, and she's talking to them, and then she wakes up, and then we see that she was sleeping inside of a vehicle and she was having a nightmare or a dream. Meanwhile, Rick is comatose on the couch right now. He's had a hell of a run, and Carl is just laying into him about how he don't need him no more and how he let everybody down and whatever the case. And so Michonne, she gets rid of those zombies, and she decides she's gonna go find Rick and everybody again and be with her friends. And so while she searches, she finds them inside a house, and she breaks down with tears of joy that she found her friends again and she can be back with them. Meanwhile, we see that everybody's been separated. Now it's Daryl and Beth together. They found a little place in the woods to hide out for the meantime as well. Then, out of the other separated group, we see that Tyrese is with the 3 little ladies. And so he's nothing but a glorified babysitter. And then while he was fighting, we see Carol came out the woods to help. And so he's so happy. Carol didn't know that he didn't know yet, because he was so happy. She was worried for a second, but Rick and them never told him. And so while they following the train tracks, they see a sign that say Terminus, Sanctuary for All. They decide to go there. Now we see Bob, Sasha, and Maggie. They were together when they got separated, and Maggie is determined to go and find the bus that Glenn was on. So they track it down. They find the bus. She runs there. They get there, and she's pissed because now everybody's turned. They all zombies, but she got to know if Glenn is a zombie. So they open it up slowly, kill all the people, and she realizes that Glenn wasn't on the bus. He's not one of the walkers. So we come to find out Glenn was passed out inside the prison looking for Maggie. He wakes up and he sees all the chaos, all the mess. He sees everybody's gone. He goes through the prison, gets all the gear he can get. He gets all armored up with the riot gear. He tries to run through the walkers like he was Todd Gurley. He busts through all of them, and then while he's running, he sees Tara sitting there on the side all huddled up. And so he goes and talks to her, sees she never even fired a shot from her weapon, and he tells her to come on. So they end up running out of there together, working together. And so while they on the road, she tells them about how the governor tricked them and how they didn't know what was going on, and how that she saw he chopped off Herschel's head, and so he's all shocked. He sees some walkers, he starts fighting, but he's still weak, and he passes out on the side of the road. And lucky for them, this army truck pulls up with this wannabe G.I. Joe looking like Guile from Street Fighter and Soldier Boy, and he tell them they on the mission to save the world. And so meanwhile, we see Carl and Michonne, and they are looking for supplies, while Rick is still recuperating in the bed back at that house, when all of a sudden he's awoken by some people that broke into the house. So he jumps under the bed and hides real quick, and this guy comes upstairs, and then he jumps in the bed that Rick was in, and he's sleeping. And then while he was resting, Rick was about to leave, but then this other dude comes upstairs, wakes him up, and then beats his ass so that he can take his bed. And so they fighting, and while they fighting, the guy on the floor looks Rick in the eye and sees him, but then he gets beaten, knocked out, so he doesn't get to say nothing. Meanwhile, Glenn wakes up on the back of the truck, and he's wondering where they are. He tells them to stop the truck. Once Soldier Boy stops the truck, he jumps off and starts walking back looking for the bus. And they like, hey, you can't leave. You're not going to find them. Chances are they're gone. Meanwhile, Rick, he finally is able to sneak out because dude on the bed is falling asleep. And so while he sneaks out, he comes across a dude in the bathroom. He ends up choking dude out and kills him, takes his weapons, and then escapes off the roof. And so while he's breaking up out of the roof to escape, he sees Michonne and Carl, and they all break out of there and get away from that house. While they're walking on the tracks, they come across a sign that says "Sanctuary for All, come to Terminus." So they decide that's where they gonna go. Meanwhile, Beth and Daryl, they come across this old shack, the Moonshine Shack. And so they start to get some moonshine, get their shine on like Cash Money. And so while they get drunk, Daryl's a mean drunk, and he starts snapping or whatever. And then while he's outside, he breaks down crying. He feel like he could have did more to prevent it. Beth and him start to bond, and then he says that this is the type of place he grew up in, and so she said, well, you can be a better person, and they decide to burn it down and give it the finger. And so they off to a new place and new beginnings. Meanwhile, we see Maggie, Sasha, and Bob come across the Terminus sign as well, and they decide that's probably the best place for them to go and find anybody also. We see Daryl and Beth come across this funeral home, so they decide they're gonna camp out there for a while. It had food and supplies, so they were like, oh, this is a blessing, until a bunch of walkers bust in through the door. And so now they had to make a clean getaway. He told Beth to escape while he tried to, distract the walkers. Once he got out of there, he went looking for Beth, and some car with a cross on the back of the window took her and peeled off. And so he's trying to track that car down as far as he can until he gets to this crossroads, and now he don't know where to go, and he just collapsed in frustration. And while sitting there for a while, this group of dudes walk up on him, and now he got to make a decision. Meanwhile, Carol and the girls are walking around. They find a little house on the farm. They decide to go in there and clear it out when a walker comes out, and the little girl, Mika, straight airs him out. And so they like, man, it's okay. And the little taller one is like, Lizzie is tripping, and she's sad you killed them. So she gets some mice and goes and starts feeding another one. And Mika is like, you can't do that. You need to leave them alone. They're dangerous. And she like, no, they're not. They're just different. And so while Carol and Tyrese are thinking about staying, they come across Lizzie, and she got blood all over, and then they see Mika behind her, and she's stabbed and killed her sister. They like, what happened? She like, it's okay. I didn't harm her brain. She'll come back. And so Carol was about to come to her, and then she pulled the strap. Hashtag get the strap on her. And so now they had to use a Jedi mind trick to trick her that, we gonna let her turn. It's okay. Meek over there with Tyrese. And so she put Meek out the misery. And while they talked to her, they found out she's the one that was doing the mice and doing all the experiments and made people sick. And so they realized she can't be around people because she don't get it. So they took her for a walk. She realized she was in trouble and that she was sad. And so she like, look at the flowers and count to 10, because that's a little thing she do. And while she was doing that, Carol shot her in the head. And so that was real heartbreaking right there to kill that kid. And then Carol told Tyrese, I'm the one that killed Karen and David. And she passed him the gun. And so he was sitting there with the gun in front of him, and he like, you know what? I forgive you. And so they decided to leave and go to Terminus because they didn't want to stay there no more. So while they were walking, Glenn and everybody was walking, and they came across a Terminus sign that said Maggie, Sasha, and Bob. Glenn take off running. They come into this little tunnel, and then they end up meeting up with everybody. And so he's back reunited. And so they all decide they're going to go to Terminus anyway. So while they finally get to Terminus, they looking for sanctuary, safety, and all of that. There's a woman there with a barbecue grill cooking. She like, welcome, have something to eat. And so they all are relaxed, happy, and everything. Meanwhile, we see Rick and everybody walking, and they gotta find a place to crash for the night, so they get into this old Suburban. Carl in there sleep while him and Michonne are talking. Next thing you know, this group come and get the drop on them. Normally, Rick is on his toes like a midget at a urinal, but this time they was able to sneak up on him. And they were going to kill Rick, but then Daryl was with him and told him, hey, these are good people, leave them alone. And so dude was like, that's a lie, Daryl. And then they make the rest of the couple dudes beat the hell out of Daryl. And so this one weirdo, Captain Lou Albano looking dude, is about to rape Carl, and so he trying to go and ride the Hershey Highway, and so Rick ain't gonna let that happen. And so what dude made a mistake, he was beating on Rick, and then he made Rick stand up, and while dude got Carl face down, ass up, Rick took a bite out of dude's throat real quick, and like he was a walker. And then Michonne was able to reverse that gun and shoot the other dude in the head. And so now Rick was able to come towards dude with the knife, and he was just ready to kill dude with the quickness. He ended up carving out a bunch of chitlins out of his belly and stabbing dude to death, brutal and gruesome. And Carl, he couldn't even watch, even though he was about to be on part of the Hershey Highway. Meanwhile, the next morning, Daryl was telling Rick, hey man, it's all right, man, anybody would have did that, wipe your face. And so Rick had so much blood on his face, he wiped his face off, and Rick told him, man, you my brother. And so they all felt a good bond. They walk and they finally get to Terminus, but they go through the back way. Rick stashed his weapons in the forest and bury it just in case. So they come around through the back door. They end up seeing the people in Terminus. Everything looked like it's okay. The guy Gareth, he welcomes them, but he says, come on to the front, we got some food for you and everything. So they come, and then Rick sees them wearing the body armor. He sees them wearing the poncho, and then he sees dude with Herschel's watch that he gave to Glenn. And so he knows something ain't right. He grabs one of them hostage and says, where's my people? What did you do with our people? And they like, look, I know you don't trust us. And he got his hand open like he was Malcolm X. And then he closed the fist like Malcolm X. And that meant that, it's time to make a move. And so everybody started shooting at him. And Rick and everybody had to make a run for it like Riggs and Murtaugh. And so while they was running through the place, they saw a little cage with human remains and stuff. And they went inside this one building with all kind of crazy writing and stuff. And then they was caught in the crosshairs and the crossfire. And everybody told them to go inside that train car and wait. And so Rick and everybody went inside the train car because they pretty much didn't have a choice. And then that's when they saw that Glenn and Maggie and everybody was in there. And Rick was like, yeah, these people, they don't even know what they just did. They just made a mistake because they picked the wrong people to mess with. And that's how season 4 ended. And so pretty much Rick and realized that these people was up to no good, and these people don't know that Rick, even though they're good people, will do anything to protect their family and they herd. And it's really crazy that Rick and them had got the drop on them, but I got a feeling that they gonna make it out of there pretty good. Check out my recap for season 5. It's on the way. I know this video was long, but it was so much that happened in season 4, and it was by far the best season at this point that I saw. The show just keeps getting better and better. Thanks for watching. I'll check you out in the next one. Peace.